Well, we are just over 2 months away now from a November special election in San Francisco for district attorney. Brooke Jenkins is hoping to stay on the job and serve out the remainder of her predecessor's term after the recall of Chesa Boudin. Jenkins is being challenged by John Hamasaki, a criminal defense attorney, and Joe Alioto Veronese, a civil rights attorney and former police and fire commissioner.
And between now and Election Day, we're talking with all three of the candidates in the DA's race. And joining us live here in studio this afternoon is Joe Alioto Veronese. Joe, always a pleasure to see you. I know you voted for the recall of Chesa Boudin.
Yes.
Tell us how your policies will differ from his.
Well, you know, Chesa he was doing some things right? He brought a national conversation to criminal justice reform that absolutely needed to happen. I just disagreed with the way he was doing it. You don't have to dismantle the criminal justice system in order to reform it. You can do it from within. In fact, I've been doing that work since I was police commissioner in 2004. Where we were adding transparency to disciplinary process in the police department. We were hiring new police officers to, through attrition, try to get out some of the old blood that was in there. And so criminal justice reform can happen, but we can also do it by keeping the people of the city and county the people of the city and county of San Francisco safe, and that's what's absolutely required. And I think that's the reason perhaps why he was recalled.
Yeah, much like Brooke Jenkins, you're talking about striking that balance between accountability and obviously trying to achieve some of the things that people want to achieve when it comes to criminal justice reform. Let's talk about some of your priorities here. I know one of the most pressing issues in San Francisco is obviously some of the scenes people are seeing on the streets of the city, the open air drug dealing that happens, the open air drug use that happens. You say you want to form a joint task force with the U.S. Marshal's Office and the U.S. Attorney's Office to try to address this issue. What makes you believe that is feasible, and why do you believe this will help to address the crisis?
We've been very successful in the past in doing this task force with the feds. The problem comes when you start inserting the immigration issue, and you have to be very careful with that, right? But the fentanyl is coming from outside the United States. So we alone in San Francisco can't solve this problem unless we have the cooperation of the federal authorities. Also state-level authorities as well. But I can tell you one thing. On day one of my administration, we will arrest, if they had not already been arrested, the fentanyl dealers that are dealing on the streets of San Francisco. We should not tolerate that for a day. They are killing more than 2 people a day in San Francisco. That is twice as many people that died from COVID last year, and we just shouldn't tolerate it. We also need to hold the city and county of San Francisco accountable for the addiction and the mental health crisis that's playing out on the streets of San Francisco. We spend probably close to about $3.5 billion a year of our $14.5 billion budget on the issue of homelessness, mental health, and addiction. And our Department of Health is absolutely failing us. We've created this system of nonprofits where close to $1.5 billion goes every year into solving some of these problems, and there's just no accountability. We have to hold our government officials accountable, and we will see a difference within 6 months of my administration.
How do you plan to do that when you say you have to hold, let's say, for example, the Department of Health accountable? How do you go about doing that?
Well, one of the things I tried to do when I was on the Fire Commission, but obviously had limited authority there, was I tried to transfer away the authority, the 5150 authority, away from police officers. Police officers should not have that authority. And frankly, when you deal with a mental health patient on the street and you have a police officer approach that person, it's a very different encounter, as opposed to having a member of the fire department or a member of the health department approach them. And we can do that. So I asked the mayor's office to do it. I lobbied the Board of Supervisors to have that authority taken away from the police, because it's not a criminal justice issue. We see a lot of these police encounters that go bad because the police department doesn't know how to deal with mental health cases. And this is an issue that has been very close to me. As you know, I started the National First Responders Fund. We spend our money on first responders with mental health issues. I know this issue very well, and that's just part of our criminal justice reform. So it's changing policies, it's working with the police commission, making sure that some of these rules change, so that the contacts with the public, because the police department they're the customer service of our criminal justice system, right? They're that branch. They are the first contact. And so we need to make sure that they have the right training so that we can hold them accountable for their training. Because most of the time in San Francisco, when a police officer does something bad, and of course there are cases, that are outliers, but most of the time it's a training issue. And so we need to make sure that they're on top of their training, and we need to make sure that we hold them accountable when they go outside their training, and that also is an important part of criminal justice reform.
All right, well, you talk about criminal justice reform, and obviously one of the key components of that is the discussion around the cash bail system. I know, broadly speaking, you oppose the cash bail system. You believe that inherently it is discriminatory. What would your policy be as district attorney, and when might you ask a judge to set cash bail? Would there be certain circumstances in which you would do that?
Look, rich people don't get a pass in the criminal justice system, and that's what cash bail is giving them. If one person has $1 billion or $1 million in the bank and the other has $10 in the bank, the criminal justice system treats them differently. I've been practicing civil rights for the last 22 years, and this law inherently discriminates against people of color. And we absolutely need to change it. But what you can't do is throw away cash bail and say, oh, well, we're not going to do cash bail, which is what this district attorney came out with her policy last week. You can't just throw it out. That breaks the criminal justice system. It creates leverage for someone to come back into the system. What you need to do is legislate it in California. You need to go to Sacramento, you need to work with our senators, and you need to make sure that you legislate some sort of change that does not discriminate against people of color. That's right there with the criminal justice reform that needs to happen. And we can create other levers to make sure people come back to court.
Is there support for something like that in Sacramento?
There's no reason why we couldn't come up with a bipartisan solution. Well, Sacramento, they're all Democrats up there in the legislature predominantly. So absolutely, I will find that support, and I will work day and night until we create a 21st century criminal justice system that serves the people of the city and county of San Francisco. That's what we deserve. When we walk out of our homes, we deserve a district attorney's office that is standing up for the people of San Francisco. And I think that's why I'm getting a lot of the support that I'm getting in this race from the many, many unions that have supported me, is because the working class people of San Francisco, they get it. They want a system that works for them, and they know that I'll deliver on that.
Well, I think one thing that a lot of people, sort of look at and say this system is not working is when it comes to repeat offenders. You've spoken often about this sort of revolving door policy. How do you go about changing that?
Well, it's holding people accountable. At the end of the day, if you were to go over the wall in the Presidio, you've got a very different criminal justice system there, right? You don't see all the laws being broken in the Presidio, or for that matter in Marin or in San Mateo, that you see that are consistently being broken in San Francisco. You have to hold people accountable. But for certain crimes, you also have to give them an opportunity for restitution. And if that restitution can't drive them deeper and deeper into, in other words, discriminate against people of color, right? So we have to work on cash bail. We have to work on restitution programs that work. We have to work on holding people accountable. Misdemeanor crimes, that division comes back in my administration. Prop 47 was not a bad thing because holding someone in jail for a year is a lot of leverage to hold against somebody who walks into a Walgreens and steals stuff. And we see that happening every day. That nonsense stops under my administration.
We're almost out of time, but just a brief answer here on the question of whether you would file charges against those who are under 18. Would you charge? Are there any circumstances in which you would charge someone under the age of 18?
Absolutely. You have to look at each one of those instances differently. You have, and you also have to hold parents accountable to the extent that you can. Every case is different that comes over my desk, and I will look at all of the leverage points and all of the ways that we can create opportunities for people to pay for their crimes, whether it's through restitution, whether it's through some sort of counseling, whether it's through that criminal justice system and the way it serves our children today is absolutely broken, and we need to fix it. But we have to look at every single one of those crimes separately. You have kids that are murdering parents. You have kids that do very bad things. Those kids that came in from the East Bay to San Francisco to prey on Miss Wren and the Asian community. That's terrible. That stops under my administration. We're not going to tolerate it.
We appreciate it.
Yeah. Joe Alioto Veronese, thank you again for joining us for this conversation. An important one. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
And be sure to join us tomorrow. That's when criminal defense attorney John Hamasaki joins us live right here in studio. He's a former police commissioner and a progressive who is all in on criminal justice reform. So don't miss our conversation with candidate Hamasaki coming up tomorrow afternoon.